Hello, everybody, and welcome to Equine Voices. My name is Ronnie, and I'm your host for today's interview. And I'm so pleased to have a guest back on again, Dr. Susan Fay. She's been on a few times. So I'm so excited to have her on again for a chat. And it's like seeing an old friend and catching up. Susan's going to talk about her work. She'll do a brief introduction for the people that are not aware of who she is. And then we'll talk a little bit about the summit that she went to in San Antonio, Texas. She'll talk about her introduction and her talk that she did. We'll also do a few questions. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask Susan or myself, please do so. But what we'll do is we'll answer the questions towards the later part of the chat, so we don't get interrupted. So don't interrupt Susan. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to stop waffling and bring her on. Okay, so here she comes. Hi, Susie.
Hi, hello everybody. Thank you for coming on this beautiful Saturday. At least it's a beautiful day here in Colorado. So thank you.
So would you like to introduce yourself? Just a brief introduction for the people that may not know who you are. There'll be lots of people that do know who you are, and then we'll go into our conversation.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, um, where do you even start when you introduce yourself? I don't have the fancy introduction. I've been actually working with horses since I was 9 years old, and I've actually been studying energy and consciousness and psychology and all of those things from the time I was about 12 years old, and having some experiences when I was younger, and those really propelling me to find answers in different ways, and not just looking at the science, which is what my background really is in the natural sciences, and I also wanted to understand, like, how do humans work, and how does our brain work, and how do we access other realms of consciousness, and all of those things are just really fascinating to me. So I've spent my lifetime really studying all of that, and really how we interact with other beings, and especially horses, because that's my big love, is how do we speak to them. But I speak maybe a little bit different than Ronnie. She does animal communication, and I also do animal communication, but in a different way, that's about how I interact with the energy field and what information I'm gaining from the energy field as far as what is going on with that animal or that person. So everybody has their preferred method of doing things, and mine is, because I'm very kinesthetic, I like to connect at an energetic level and feel things in my body and interpret that information that I receive, rather than verbal information. In fact, just a quick brief little thing. It's like when I was a kid, it's like, why do people use words? I mean, I didn't even think I needed to speak, because don't we, why do we even need words? Because I'm feeling all these things, and they're, to me, very rich and have a lot of information in them. And those are the feelings we have that I love to interpret, and I love to speak to horses and other animals in that language too, because we both understand it. So, um, just that brief background. I, went to school for quite a while. My journey took me to environmental science and then to psychology, and all the way around, all these different things kind of are fitting together into what I do now with horses and people. So a brief introduction. Maybe it made you more confused about who is she? What does she do? I don't really know. I do a lot of things. That's all I can say. So
That was perfect, Susie. And if anybody wants to know any further information about Dr. Susan Fay, you can go to her website and find out more information. But also, we've done previous interviews, and so you can look at them and hear a little bit more about her background and her story. So we're just going to touch on your summit, because that was one big thing that you did last year. Actually, you've done lots of big things, but that was a big thing to go to. So do you want to explain a little bit of what you was doing there and how that came about?
yeah, and I think what's really interesting is, not that many years ago, the horse world was still kind of in that dominance-based training thing, and just in the past few years there's started to be this big shift into what people are really looking at, and they're getting more into the neuroscience, and they're getting more into the psychology and about us working on ourselves, and exploring all these other avenues which are really exciting. And I think that the summit, Warwick Schiller's podcast summit in San Antonio, Texas, was the first, I wouldn't say maybe the first really big, it was a really big international type of conference where people from around the world were coming to speak there, and everybody was bringing in their perspectives on this new trend that we're seeing in the horse world. And so it was really exciting. And it was one of those things where, I said I've been working since I was 12, studying consciousness and all this stuff. So for me, it felt like, why weren't people jumping on board years ago, and why was this so long in the making? And but for me, when that summit happened, it was like, wow, this is something I didn't expect to happen in my lifetime, maybe, that there would be this group of people that, and such a large paradigm shift happening right now. And so that's what's really great. And anytime there's a paradigm shift, there's a lot of people involved, and there's a lot of different things that happen, and there's a lot of information coming from a lot of different sources, and that in itself can make people become quite confused. It's like, which way should I go? How should I do things? Wow, all this information, it's all new. I want to learn everything I can, and in the process they kind of go through a period of time of great confusion. And that's okay, because if you take some time after that confusion and sit with it and be quiet in that quiet space, all of that information will start to integrate, and it will come into your brain and start to work in a way that makes sense to you. But if you stay in that kind of, just staying in all the, I need to get more information, and you never give yourself time to integrate it, you just create more confusion in your brain. So that's one of the things. I love all the information coming out, but just be gentle with yourself. Go take some time, go play with some things, and see how they work for you, and then go gather some more information, integrate it, see how it works for you. And that's really, I have had 60 some years to do that. So it's been the way that I've come to where my understanding of a lot of things is, yes, I went and studied a lot, but I would go home with that information and I would experiment with it. Does this work for me the way I am or not? And then add more things. If that worked, if it didn't, whatever. So I just encourage people to do that. Um, but Ronnie, I want to talk a little bit more. Oh my gosh, I just went dark.
Oh,
My
don't worry, we can still see you and I can still hear you.
Isn't this
Don't.
so? This is so funny. I have a ring light behind me, and it just went out. I just got it. Okay, so
We can still see you, Susie, so
all
don't
right.
worry. Don't
Sorry.
worry. We can see you.
This is why I hesitate to ever do any kind of things with technology, is because something happens every single time, even though I've got all sorts of contingency plans and all. So hold on, let me turn on my overhead light and
Yeah,
see if
that's
that
fine.
helps
Don't worry. Don't
here.
worry.
Um, ah, a little better. Okay. So, wow. Welcome to my world. Now, maybe you all know why I'm not big on technology for getting feedback on where we are and who we are and what we're doing. There's this big science thing that's about, well, we've got to get this device to give us information on what's happening internally in us, and we can look at the graph and see where we're at. And I'm about, let's just rely on ourselves. Let's teach ourselves to learn where we're at and what we're doing and how we are. And so I think this may be why, when you work in the energy field, you may notice that sometimes you blow out energy things. I'm just gonna say. Um, and so I'm always like, I've got to have a plan that doesn't involve any high tech thing and just me. So just a little side note on the energy. And if you guys need more information on that, you can contact me or something, or you can put a post on my Facebook group and ask why the energy always blows out around me. So um, anyway, we'll get back to where I was after this brief, like little segue out into my light going out. Um, I hope that's not a metaphor for something. Oh my gosh.
Don't
Anyway,
go there. Don't go there.
it's so funny. It gets back to, I'm going to this big summit and I'm a speaker at this big summit in Texas, about the whole paradigm shift in the horse world. And we had quite a while to prepare for this. And I kept worrying about what would I talk about? What would be the best thing to talk about? And I prepared lots of different things. And one of the ways that I work generally is I read the audience and I read the energy of the situation, and then I do what speaks to me at that moment or what I feel is the message that needs to be heard. And so this was one of those cases where, wow, I'm on a big stage and I should have something very prepared and very I practiced and all that. And at the same time I was thinking that when you do that, it doesn't ever come across quite as genuine when you have the preparation and you have the fancy everything. And just for me, it just felt like that wouldn't be how I work, is to just come up there with a canned speech that I prepared and practiced a lot. And I thought, what if could I go up there and know some general topics I would talk about and then freeform it and let it evolve from there, and based on what I thought the audience might need to hear or might like to hear. And so one of the things up until the last minute, I really didn't know, like, what am I going to share? What am I going to talk about? And uh, as I stepped on there, it came down to, this is what you need to talk about, is gratitude. So do something with gratitude, and something about communion and what does communion mean. And so those were the two main topics that I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about those. And then here's what happens when you study the brain for a long time and you study your consciousness and you study psychology and all those things. And I thought, what if I give myself a directive? My subconscious is that you will talk for 20 minutes, because that's what we were given, is a 20-minute time frame. Well, how do you make sure you end up with 20 minutes when you're going to freeform something? So this is one of those places you go practice. It's like, okay, I put the intention, I'm going to talk for 20 minutes. My body has an internal clock. It's not on the outside, it's on the inside. 20 minutes. After 60 some years, it knows what 20 minutes is. So I'm like, okay, 20 minutes, you'll set the alarm and you'll go for that length of time. And so I spoke about some different things, and again, it was very subdued, or compared to some of the other talks, maybe it wasn't as flashy or anything else. And I didn't have slides, and I just spoke from my heart. And I ended up telling a story about a horse and about what he taught me about gratitude. And it was really profound for me to um, get up there and really share a very vulnerable time about what this horse taught me. And I could feel myself choking up at one point toward the end of the speech, and because I was reliving that moment with that horse. And I was hoping that that message would come across not as, oh, she just told the story, but for people to go back and maybe listen to that and listen to the underlying messages that were in that speech. And they were pretty deep and profound. Even though I had humor in there, and even though I was just telling a story, there were some very deep things in that talk that came through. And one of them was what I talked about at the very beginning here: be quiet, take some time. Don't be doing so much around your horse, and you're going to find that you have these profound experiences when you can do that. And when we're busy, we never have time to notice a profound experience because we're on to the next one right away. And that's the problem with humans is we're always waiting to go to do the next thing and not enjoying the thing that we're doing right then, right now. And our horses want us to be in the present with them. And part of the thing that I'm seeing a lot of stuff happening right now is that people are so consumed with, I've got to learn this thing and I've got to do this new thing and I've got to do that. And they go out in there with their horse and they're doing all this stuff. And the horse is going, ugh, I don't like how you are in this place. And when I tell them, just go out there and be with your horse, and they're like, well, that's too easy. I can't, nothing's happening. Yes, if you wait and you're quiet, you're going to be amazed at what does happen in that quiet space. So, really, that I keep saying it in different ways, but the message seems to get lost. And, you know, in our society, we're so consumed with what is shiny, what is flashy, what's the loudest, what's the most exciting thing out there. Guess what? Being quiet is not that exciting. If you're looking for the dopamine hit, you're not going to get it there, but you're going to get something a whole lot better than the dopamine hit. So, um, I think what my overall message is that, if we're going to make it as humans and keep going on, we've got to know who we are. And we got to not keep getting pulled in by all the flashy, the shiny, those things that seem so exotic and wonderful. And we have to get back and know ourselves and who are we and what are we doing and what do we contribute to the energy of this world. And that's kind of my message is be aware of what energy that you're bringing into this world every moment as much as you can. We're all human and we have failings and we have times we can't keep it together. But when you're with a group of people, when you're with someone, when you're with a horse, know who you are, know where you're at, and know what you're contributing to that moment. So that was kind of my whole gist of the message from the podcast summit. And, go out and learn the other stuff, but take time to integrate it. Take time to just be. So anyway, that's my podcast summation, so to speak. So
that was beautiful, Susie. Do you want to touch on, if you don't want to go there, that's fine. But do you just want to touch on how, when you came back, because we had a conversation, that you realised how, or you was aware of it anyway, but it came to the forefront, how horses can feel when they're so overwhelmed, how that makes them shut off and shut down. Because you didn't shut down, but it was quite intense what you experienced. And as you're such a sensitive, energetic person, that affected you more than you realize. Do you want to touch on that subject?
And I think it gets to I put a post on Facebook. It's like I was going to talk about highly sensitive people. And they use a word neurodivergent, people that aren't normally neurologically normal, what everybody else is like. And I can tell you, going to a big conference like that, when you're a highly sensitive person, is quite challenging. And I have lots of different techniques and skills that I've used over the years because I know I'm going to have to be in those situations. And how do I regulate my nervous system in that space? And mostly I do it through breathing. And I thought I was holding it together pretty well, but at the time, like, okay, this is a lot of external stimulation and I cannot process that much information in my nervous system. It's just not possible. And there wasn't anywhere to go where, like at home, or most of the work I do is out in rural areas, or you have nature out there to help you re-regulate your nervous system, and I didn't have anything. It's like that area is all concrete. It's just a totally kind of unnatural world, and especially for somebody like me who comes from, being a rancher and being outside most of your life, and you're used to that environment, and then you're stuck into this one, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm taxing my skill set to deal with this space. And as I was sitting there at the conference going, okay, I am totally um, at my limit here. And then I had the revelation sitting there of like, wow, what is it like for horses who are also highly sensitive, even more so than what I am? How is it for them to live in a human world, a humanly constructed world, and try to function in that and regulate themselves? And it just gave me that insight of like, wow, I have so much more empathy for what horses have to deal with. And this is why it got back to, why did I talk about the quiet space? We've got to give our horses those quiet times, not being on all the time. They're having to process a lot of information, and their nervous systems were not designed to live in the environments we put them in, and so they're doing their best. And so I'm always like, wow, now I come back with even more empathy for the horse. And especially when you think about, we put a horse in a horse show, can you imagine the amount of stimulus that's going on there that they've got to deal with? And what are their choices? Check out, or try to deal with, explode, whatever they do. I can tell you, when I sat there, I got all the feelings like I think what a horse would experience. It's like, I want to blow right now. I want to blow, but I'm going to keep it together because that's not socially okay. Like if my head explodes here in this deal, okay, I'm regulating, and I'll get out of here. Okay. Um, but wow, I got home from that and I had a big, you say I handled it. I didn't handle it. I got home and I plunged into a depression like I've never had before in my life. And then I thought, is this what happens to our horses when they got overwhelmed? And then they shut down and they don't want to be motivated to do anything. It's like I was reliving all the things I've seen horses do when they get overstimulated and overwhelmed. And, I kept thinking I can shut down. There were a couple days where I just sat and I like, I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. And I just was, I don't know if I was doing crossword puzzle. I was just sitting there like inert. And it's like, I can't even get my body to do something. And I was feeling down, depressed, things. If somebody said, it's a nice day, Susie, and I thought, I want to rip your head off. And then I thought, how many horses have I seen where they've been overstimulated and then they're angry? And so I'm getting to experience all of these things that I've seen happen in horses, and really living them from a human perspective and saying, wow, now I've got to do something different with these horses. I've got to have even more empathy toward what they're going through when they've been subjected to this human world that we're in. So I think everything that we do, I feel like, is a lesson. There's a lesson to be learned within different situations. And I kind of knew before I went to this summit, I had reservations. Should I do this? Should I go there and subject myself to that, knowing I'm a highly sensitive person? And then I go, well, no, this is a test. Let me see what happens. But within that, I'm really glad I did, because it gave me so many more insights into the work I do with the horses and how they react. And, I'm someone that's got a fairly decent skill set for dealing with life. And I was struggling. And so I just think our horses don't necessarily have a skill set to deal with it. How do they struggle? And so, yeah, there was just so much in that, I think, wow, that was really hard. And would I do it again? I don't know. Would I have to do it again? I don't think so. I don't know that I would, but I think that's the reason I went to that, and that I said yes is because there was a lesson to be learned within that for me to bring out and put into my work. And I think that's what I'm always doing, is looking for these lessons in life and not avoiding a situation, but going into it going, okay, what could I learn from that situation that might help me or give me more insight? So that was that was a long way around, but yeah, it took my nervous system probably a month to re-regulate after that. Um,
Yeah. And that's the thing, when you're dealing with other people or horses, and they're learning something new, or they're trying to understand what you're asking, and reading your energy and reading their own energy, that can take, oh it can take a while for them to balance that out, to work through that. And sometimes as humans, we get excited if we see something, and we get a feeling, and we think, oh my God, that was amazing. As humans, we get so excited, we want more of it. And it's like, it's like the old saying, you see a cream cake in a shop and you think, oh, I'd really like to eat that. And you go and eat it and you taste it, and it's like, oh, this is the best cake I've ever tasted. And then you go back an hour later, I want another one. And you eat it and you're like, yeah, that's a lovely cake. Now, if you went back about 6 times, by the time you'd had your sixth cake, you'd be like, actually, I'm done now.
yeah,
um, so, and with horses, they need that time to process or to do what they need to do. And we need the time to just sit back and understand what we've just done or what we've just felt, what we've experienced, rather than running away with our thoughts and letting that take us somewhere else when we haven't actually digested what's just happened. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it's sometimes we can, and it gets to what you were saying about the cake. It's like we keep wanting that same experience and that same experience, but maybe that's not the best thing. Like, take your time, experience that really wonderful high that you get from the cake, and then go back and be in your normal space and experience that space. And then when you take the next bite of cake, maybe another month later, that cake still has that same level of wonderfulness to it. But like you're saying, if you have it every day, it loses its flavor, it loses its impact on you. And the same thing with when I came back from the summit, I haven't experienced, I've had some little situational depression times in my life. Everybody has. But it was very interesting that when I got that and it hit, it was so heavy and it was so big, and I thought, wow, I have never really experienced that. I want to sit on the couch doing nothing and feel this, so I know what it is, so I recognize it, because it has something to tell me here. And that depression was there to tell me, you know what? You kind of overdid it, you know? And here's what you'll feel like when you do that. And it's okay to sit here, because this depression stopped me from doing more stuff. It made me be quiet so that I could actually integrate what happened to me. And, a lot of times we take depression and these things and go, oh, I hate that feeling. And let me take something or do something to make that feeling go away because I don't want it there. And I was doing the opposite thing where, wow, I haven't had that. I want to experience that, because when I come out of it, I know I'm going to appreciate where the normal space is. I'm going to feel like that's my cake now, just to feel normal again. And so I think, everything I teach is about having that broad spectrum of feelings, like experiencing everything, not just going, oh, I love this wonderful, perfect, wonderful feeling, and I want to keep it going all the time. I don't want it to ever go. That's not realistic. You can't maintain that because your body's going to crash at some point. It's when I live in that sacred space, which is pretty much my normal space, it's so nice. And it doesn't have a lot of highs and lows, and it just goes, but it's very peaceful there. But then when the highs come, they're like, wow, that's really cool. But I like to go back to my sacred space. Then when the low comes, I go, ooh, oh, that's interesting. And then I come back to the sacred space, that nice, peaceful place. And I go, wow, now I appreciate that space even more. Um, so that kind of got to a place where I wasn't thinking we were going today. But yeah, it's just everything, first of all, we're kind of disconnected from our emotions, a lot of people. And, somehow society told us to be afraid to express or feel emotions. And they're there for a reason. And they're beautiful. I mean, even the deepest, darkest depression, in some ways, it felt kind of interesting and good. Like, wow, this feeling is making me slow down, take a breath, don't do anything. And I thought that was a beautiful message. And it was exactly what I needed to do. So there
Thank
we
you for
go.
thank you for sharing that, Susie. It's really, I think it's important for people to understand that not everything is sunshine and rainbows, and we all have our moments. But I think the fluctuations of those moments show you where you want to be and where you don't want to be, and it's not always necessary a negative. It's an experience. Now you can really allow that experience to overtake you and keep you there, or you can observe it, feel it, and watch it and think, what is this showing me? What is this? And for you, that was another big light bulb moment, to just instill deeply about horses when they get flooded. They have nowhere to go. What do? They either explode or they close off.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sometimes when you get a new horse and you get excited and you do things, it is exciting and you think, oh my god, I've just done that, I want to do it again. It's like, you have people sometimes that have a horse for jumping, and they go out and they want to do jumping and they get excited and they get the adrenaline, and the horse does that jump and they do that beautifully. The horse really gives their all. And then the next thing is, oh, let's hire this jump. I want to do that again. Let's do it bigger. And, they can do the next jump and it's a bigger jump, and the horse does it because, that they get excited about that. But sometimes, and this depends on the person and the horse, they're not all the same. I'm just doing a general example here. Sometimes it's higher, 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 and the horse gets to a point where it's like, actually, I've given you my all. I'm not sure that I want to give any more on that level. And if we don't hear that subtle change in excitement and give from the horse, we won't recognize that. And we push them to a point where a horse that maybe loved doing something decides that it's not what they like anymore. It's a bit like the cream cakes. They've had their fill of cream cakes. They don't want any more cream cakes. And sometimes if you give them a choice and you let them have a break from that, do something a bit different, see what they want to do, and then go back, they've almost go, yeah, now I want to do that again.
Mhm.
But it might be just once, it might be twice, it might be forever. Again, it depends on the person, it depends on the horse. But if you understand your own feel and listen to the feel of the horse, and is that really excitement, or is that, I'll give you that, then you've got more chance to have a fulfilling relationship and understand when it's time to change things, or when it's time to just bring it down a notch. And it can be sometimes, if you pull back, that pulling back, just that acknowledgement of something's changing, that the horse goes, okay, now I can give you it. Because as we get anxious and we have our own doubts, if we're pushed into something, if you give them the chance to say, well, you don't have to do that, they go, okay, let me think about it. Okay, I can do it. I know I can do it.
Mhm.
So but it's fluctuating and it's fluid. It's exactly that second is what you're working with, and then the next second you're working with that, and then the next second. There's no time frame. There's no plan as such. You just have to go with each moment of what's going on with you and what's going on with your friend or your horse.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I brought that into conversation, but I've brought it in.
I think I think that's interesting too, and you know, I'll just relate it first to my experience. You know, I love to speak in front of people. You know, but it's in the chunks of it. You know, it's kind of going back to what you're talking about with the horses. I love to jump, but not that much or that high. And we don't want to take away that desire and that inner motivation. Internal motivation is the highest. It's like, because I love to do it, I'm going to do it on my own, whether you ask me for it or not. Um, but yeah, I kept thinking too, it's like when you're talking about horses and in the moment, you're dealing with every moment with that horse. And when I'm with a horse and I'm there, it's a very fluid thing. It's not like I'm going to stay at that one space all the time. I'm going to be monitoring that horse. Oh, looks like he's getting a little discouraged or something. How do I motivate him to do that? Or does he need a break from it for a minute and we go do something else that he enjoys doing? So it's this play that has not been in the horse world in the old way of training, where you just get the horse in and you push it till it does what you want, and you keep pushing it past that place and you make sure you've got it. And now with this new way of looking at things, it's like we've got to be a lot more intuitive and a lot more observant about, where's my horse at? Is he enjoying that? What could I do to help him? Why did he say no to me? What could I do to encourage him to say yes instead? And there's all this interplay that's happening now, and it causes us to be a whole lot more, again, observant and empathetic to what's going on with that horse, and how do we encourage him, and how do we work as a partnership rather than as a dictatorship, which has been kind of in the past. It's like, you do this or else. And now it's like, well, I'm going to go back to when I was on the ranch. It's like, well, we have to do certain things. The cows are out, we've got to go get them. But how do I encourage that horse to want to do that when the time is, I need to have you do that? And this is where that need comes in. It's like, as humans, like, I need you to do this and you better do it now. And the horse goes, no, I don't want to do it. Well, it was interesting on the ranch because I would have maybe 5 or 6 horses, and they'd see me come out and they'd line up on the gate. It's like, oh, I got to go get the cows today. They're out on the field, and like, who wants to go? And they'd all like push their way up to like, pick me, pick me. And it's like, why are they asking to be picked? Why are they asking to be chosen? Because they know they're going to go do a hard job. But it's the relationship. That's why they want to spend the time with me. And that's what's, I think, missing sometimes, is like, horses will do just about anything for you if you can hold the right energy and make it fun for them, because they're seeking the relationship. And, like, they don't care what that is. As long as they're feeling good about your relationship with them, they'll work their heart out for you. They'll do more than you would ever ask them for. But that's where my horses were at, where they knew, like, wow, it's fun to be with you, and we're going to go do this adventure. And yeah, it's going to be hard, but we're going to have fun, and we're going to feel good about ourselves because we accomplished something afterwards. So, it's, I see kind of, as we're making this switch, that people are saying, well, my horse doesn't want to do that, so I didn't ask him to do it. And so they go out the next day. Well, my horse still doesn't want to do that, so I'm not going to ask him. And so there's never any anything that ever happens. It's like the horse is going to say no every time you go out there from now until eternity, unless you do something to change that no into a yes. And that's where I'm working at. It's like, how do we get that horse to say yes in a very enthusiastic way? Yes, I'd love to do that with you. What do you want to do? Oh, some hard stuff. Okay, we can go do that. And what the horse wants to feel is good in his body and his mind when he's with you. He wants that relationship just as much as you do. And I think what we as humans do is we've got a task to do, and then we make it icky. We make it heavy and hard. We're going to have to do this. You better do this. And then your energy changes, and then the horse like, wow, you're no fun. And so you could do the exact same job, but have a different energy about it. And the horse says, yeah, want to do some more? Would you like to do some more? And that's where I want to teach people. I want to help them to find that place. Like, how do you have the horse say yes? What do you do to change yourself to encourage that horse to say, yeah, I'd love to be with you? And I think we make it too hard. We make it into all these different things you have to do, or these different things. Well, oh, I can't ask him to do that. That's too much. Oh, well, what about, taking it into your life? Do you go to work? Do you do a job? Do you feel good about your job? Do you accomplish something? Every being on this earth came for a purpose, and they want to feel good about themselves through doing some kind of giving back. I mean, that's the way it is. It's like you just sit as a bump on a log and you do nothing. You have no motivation. But you have no inner pride or anything that motivates you. But when you do a job well and it's recognized, you're encouraged to do that job again and give it your all. And that's what I want to do with the horses is, here, we're going to do this hard job, and I'm going to give you so much encouragement and praise, and I'm going to recognize that you did that. And I'm going to appreciate and be grateful for what you did for me. And then the next time they go, what would you like me to do? I want it builds in that inner motivation for them. Like, I want to please you because I like the feeling you get. The feeling you give me when I do something that you recognize, that makes me feel good about myself. And so that's really where, it's simple. It's just simple stuff. It's all about recognizing and understanding when somebody's struggling, how can I help them? And when somebody says, no, I don't want to do that job, how could I help you say yes? And not in a manipulative way, but in a fun way. So I feel like I'm rambling today, big time.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect, Susie, as ever. I love listening to you speak, and I forget actually I should be paying attention more.
You're talking, I'm like, oh, I see, and this is where we go back to that awareness thing. It's like Ronnie was talking, and for a minute I felt like, oh, I left for a second, but why did I leave? Because something you said made me think about another thing in my life, right? And this is things that we know, and it's like, no, bring me back to the focus on what is she saying. I want to know what she's saying in this moment. And see, that's where learning that inner awareness is like, we're with our horse and we're doing something, and then all of a sudden we're thinking of something else. And to recognize that we went and started thinking of something else, and we bring our attention back to our horse or the person that we're with. And boy, we are so destructible as people, we're all over the place. And then we go, we're so bad at our horse because they're flighty or they're looking at this and that. It's like, well, guess what, honey? So are we. Don't ask him to do something you can't do yourself. So that's always my thing. It's like, wow, I can't criticize the horse for that because I kind of disconnected for a minute there.
Yeah, but that's what we that's what we do. We're human, but it's
Right.
being aware of it, and not beating yourself up, not getting cross with yourself, because again, that's a different energy.
Right.
But just being aware of it, and you when you notice that you do that, you can come back. But this is a different scenario because you're focusing on lots of different things, as am I. But I just want to say, I know we've got lots of people that have joined us, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for everybody that's joining us. And just to make you aware that Susie can see your comments. So although I've not put them on screen, she can see who's
Oh, hold
here
on.
and
I've
your
got to
lovely, lovely.
go over. Oh, see, I was on the private chat and I was like, well, nobody's even here. And then I just switched over. I haven't used the StreamYard one. It's like, oh, there's two different settings here. So I'm on the comments. So hello, everybody that I missed.
Oh, so there's lots of people here that
Okay.
you know, and there's a few people that I know too. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
If you've got any questions, so we might go back and see, but I'm just going to carry on in a second chatting with Susie. If you've got any questions, we'll try and answer a few of those.
Yeah.
So Susie, I know you've got in the pipeline, you're working on your online course, aren't you?
Yes. It is so funny because I've been promising this thing, and people are probably like, "Oh my God, is she ever going to do it?" You get going on one thing, and then things get bigger or things change, and you're going, "Oh, well, I can't put it out yet because look at all this stuff." And I'm kind of glad I waited till now because it's actually a whole lot more that's going to be in this first course I do, which is going to seem like for some people it's just going to be about breathing and some self-awareness things, but it is the foundational piece for every single thing that I do. And it's also the thing that I emphasize the most at my clinics, and it's the thing that people disregard the most. And so it's like it's kind of funny, and I'm thinking, well, how do I um, get get people to understand how profound these very simple things are, that if we practice on these very simple foundational things, we can do a whole lot more. And if you cannot do the breathing and some of the scanning, you the other things that you do later with the energy are not going to work as well. And so I'm always like, take some time and learn this one thing and get it really good. And it's going to, if it's the only thing you ever do and you just go, I'm not going to do any of the other stuff that she talks about, it's going to make the biggest impact on your life you could ever know. And when I'm writing this, I've got a little handbook that I'm doing, and it probably be in the course, and I'm not sure how that will all transpire, but I just went through, and it's like some of the stories that I remember doing when I experimented with this breathing around people or animals, and I have these stories in there. It's like these are profound. These are these are things that, if you just do that, your life is going to change significantly for the better. So again, having people first of all realize that something can be very profound and work really well and be very, very simple in design. And what we've been taught is that something isn't valuable unless it's really, really complicated. And as a scientist, as somebody that's worked in, you know, as a researcher, yeah, there's a lot of complicated stuff there. And it never makes it down into any practical application in the real world because it's so complicated, nobody could do it. And I feel like my job is to take the really complex stuff, narrow it down, make it into something like here's a couple steps you can do to accomplish those things that they're talking about, that they made really complicated, and you can make them very simple and enjoy the benefits of that research. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm going. I just saw Judy. One of my things, Judy Roll was like, "Can you tell me what you did for yourself to get out of the slump you experienced after this summit?" And that's a really good question. And the first thing I did was I decided that I wanted to immerse myself in the feeling of the depression, that heavy feeling. Like I wanted to, like I looked at where in my body was I feeling that? What did it feel like in that space? And I just really sat with that. And then I made a decision about how long I would do that. Okay. So the fact that I knew it wasn't going to last forever was one of those psychological things that helped me go, okay, I'm not going to like go get medication to get out of this, because I've already made an intention that this feeling will last. I think I even said it went for most of November. Um, so I'm like, it'll be done around the 1st of December. So that was my first step. My second was to just embrace it and say, what is the reason that this feeling is here? What is it trying to teach me? What message is it trying to give me? And in that, I could then go, okay, what can I do with that message I got? And it was a message about, you know what, you overdid it. Guess what? The other message was, see how horses feel when they get flooded. You need to take that information and do something with that, as far as teaching people about, this is a similar thing that happens in horses. So there were all these things that I really just looked at individually, like, okay, there's another message, there's another thing I'm supposed to learn from this, and here's another one. And what I did was, instead of trying to push it away, I just sat with it. And and then when I thought, wow, it's weird not to have any motivation whatsoever. And then I told myself, well, maybe you don't need any right now. Maybe you could just take a break, because maybe you just need a break. And so again, it was just looking at all of those messages and really sitting with them, and thinking about them deeply in a quiet space. That's the other thing I did. I didn't do a lot of stuff. I didn't go out and try to be happy with my friends, or, go eat a lot of stuff to make me feel a lot of cake. I didn't go do a lot of cake, and none of those things, but I just made that decision to, again, experience it to its greatest degree and embrace it. So I hope that helped a little. And situational depression is a little bit different than other types of depression, and I could see that there were some other family things that happened that were really, really bad at that same time. And I'm like, okay, this is, I just need to not be doing anything. And my body, everything is telling me, don't do more stuff. So, again, I think it's just that piece of listening to yourself and what your body is saying.
I think exactly that's if you'd ignored that, it might have had ramifications further down the line, like keeping yourself busy. You might have suppressed some of that feeling or buried some of that feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
then that's when it comes out later. That's when you have triggers. So what you did at that time, you sat with it, you acknowledged it, you recognized it, and you felt it. And you came through that. So that particular experience has been dealt with. If we layer things and we don't acknowledge it and we try and push it aside, that's when you get a stacking in humans, and that's what you get in horses too. You have
Mm-hmm.
that stacking experience, and it can be a small thing that makes you explode, or has the opposite effect where you just, as you do, you want to just sit there. You're not motivated. You just don't feel like doing anything. But we all get in those spaces, and we all have those moments. And sometimes when something exciting happens, or a big thing like the summit, so I'm not going to talk forever about the summit, but we'll just mention that again. That experience is so powerful. Lots of different frequencies, lots of different energies bouncing off each other. That you have to go away and just deal with whatever that is and balance yourself out and find what's coming up, because I believe that your body will start to let go of things when it feels it needs to, or when there's an opportunity. And if something is pushing you and it's fluctuating and it's like, okay, I recognize that feel, it's time to let this go. It comes up for you to work through.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know why I'm talking about that. So maybe
Um,
somebody listening might be experiencing something that we've talked about, so it might resonate with them.
and I have a comment, if I could, on that about, we always go, oh, I need to let that go. I need to let that go. And I've done a lot of study and like how do we let it go and when does it let go? It let goes it let goes. It will let go when you're in that quiet space. It doesn't let go when you're trying and you're doing and you're seeking all these things to how do I let it go? No, you got to get to that quiet place. And that's kind of where I went to with the depression too, is that I just went into that sacred space and sat in that because it will everything that's ready to let go will come up to the surface when you're quiet. And it may be uncomfortable as it comes up and it bubbles up to the surface, but it's coming up and it may come to your mind. It's like, yeah, I could let that go now. Yeah, let me look at that and let it go. But all the healing that takes place, and that's why it's a sacred space. You don't have to do a lot if you could get yourself to that space. And that's what I'm going to be teaching in the breathing class too. It's like when you get to that space, the need to do a whole lot of extra stuff to make something happen goes away. Okay, and you just you hold that energy of like everything's safe, everything's okay to be let go of when it's ready. um, and one of the problems with the sacred space too, I don't take people there right away. It's like, let's just say you went and did ayahuasca or something like that, which I don't advocate necessarily, because I'm like, we can get to all of those states without any drugs, without any medicinal or plant-based um, help, if you do it, because you can do it all naturally without that. And when you do it naturally, the dose is right. When you do it medicinally, you may or may not get the right dose. You may or may not have a really bad experience. So I'm always about, let's just do it the natural way, because the energy knows how much you need and you can monitor that and your body knows what you need. So that's again why I'm not a big technology kind of person to make things happen or make things let go. And nor am I a big one on using different medicinal things to make things let go. I like to do it naturally, because then you're safer. Because if you're, again, it's like I take people to the sacred space in increments, because just like any drug, you can get kind of high on it. I can tell you, it can be addictive, or it can cause you to have, just like you've seen people have a good drug experience and people have a bad one. And the same thing with if you go too fast with bringing yourself into that lower brain waves and being conscious and all that, you can have a pretty profound experience, because a lot of your stuff might come up all of the sudden and you may not be ready for it. So um, that's just a cautionary note. And that may be why, like when I work with clients, it's like, yes, this is a very powerful tool, but if it's in the wrong hands, it can be misused. So I'm always monitoring both the horses and the people about how deep I'm taking them into the sacred space, because I've got to titrate them. Like you can go this far, then come back out, get your body used to that one, and then come back out. Okay. You don't just go there immediately and experience it and without some practice, is all I'm going to say. So, um, okay.
So we've got Holly's asked a question, but I'm not sure if that's one. So afterwards, do you want to? I'll pop that on. Actually, there you go. It's quite a big.
Oh, that's pretty cool. He doesn't want to go back home. Once finally back, he stops prior to going to the pasture gate. No grass in his pasture.
So that's quite a
Okay,
big.
so
Yeah.
here's where, when we are doing stuff with the horses, we're always like trying to sort of control what they're feeling. And like, oh, I'm getting make it happy, whatever is happy for this horse or whatever. So I'm kind of different in the way that I do energy. I kind of evaluate what would motivate that horse, and then I create it in my body. And then I take responsibility for that, and I don't send it to the horse. So I become happy. Like I'm just going back here, blah. And then I don't worry about whether they're coming with me or not coming with me. I just go do it. And this is a hard one for people because they're always looking back. It's like, I got to make my horse come. And they're all about the control of like, the horse has to be here, the horse has to do this. I'm going to change myself and I'm going to walk off. And if the horse didn't come with me, I'm going to think of something else to walk off as an energy, and until I find the one that motivates that horse. But I'm not going to micromanage his life for him. He's going to figure out, yeah, I should come with her. Yeah, I want to come with her. So this is something, it's hard for me to say when we're talking like this. It's easier to see when I'm actually doing it with a horse or a person. It's like finding that place that motivates a horse, and not worrying about where their feet are or what they're going to do, but only worrying about what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Because if you think about it, if you have a friend and you're close with that friend, you don't have to keep turning around like, come on, come on, come on. You just walk off together and you're doing something together and you're doing things together because you're like, well, let's go do this thing now. And you just walk off and you take care of yourself and you don't keep worrying about, is she lagging behind a little bit? Or is she right at my shoulder? Is she up in front? No, that's her responsibility. Okay, we already know what we're going to go do. And I'm just going to take responsibility for myself. So this is a hard one for me to explain to people because it seems so different than what we've been taught in the horse world. It's like we've got to micromanage that horse's feet and tell him where to put them every moment. No, I want that horse to learn where to put his feet. And I want to monitor our relationship by whether or not he's following me or he's not. And if he's not following me, what do I need to change in myself? Why is he not motivated? So, and food isn't necessarily the biggest motivator either. People are always telling me that. It's like, well, you're not, the energy's not going to be stronger than food as a motivator. I'm like, oh yeah, it is. It's far more. I've had mares in heat leave geldings because I changed my energy. It's far more, if you pick the right one that horse likes, it's far more powerful than any other thing that you could do. So, and that's just picking the thing that's the biggest motivator for that horse. So anyway,
Okay. Thank you, Susie. I'm just going to see if we've got any more questions. There are so many people. It's lovely. And once again, Susie can see these comments. So I'm not going to read them all because this is going to be a podcast, and for people that listen to it afterwards, that might not make sense in certain areas. I'm just seeing if anybody else has asked any more questions. I think somebody asked about if you're doing a mini workshop regarding the breathing exercises. Now I know it's in your book, isn't it?
I haven't done the breathing in my Sacred Spaces book. The one that I did in there, I briefly described it. When I wrote Sacred Spaces, I didn't think people are actually going to read it. And I'm like, how many exercises should I put in this book if nobody's going to be interested? And it's kind of nice after it comes out to see where as I'm going around doing this work, where are the things and what are the things that people need to work on so that I can focus on that first. And actually going to do all of that, I don't think that I knew the level of importance of my breathing until I was actually out doing a whole lot more stuff. And then I realized, oh, here's this subconscious thing that I'm doing that I really didn't put a lot of value on, but it really is the most foundational piece of everything I do. And so therefore I need to go and teach it. And what my intention is I hopefully getting everything done this month. It's like I've got the workbook almost hopefully next week, and then I'll be able to put together a class on Teachable and be able to walk you through it. I want to make that available. So let's see, maybe you could put see the The problem when, with Lisa, it's like I'll have all of this out here again pretty soon. The problem that I've encountered with giving people the mini version of it, especially at clinics and stuff, is they disregard it. Because I'll go back and they'll go, well, the thing you taught, it's not working. And I go, were you breathing? Well, no, I don't do that. And it's like, well, it doesn't seem like it was impactful enough. Like I wasn't making it clear that this is foundational. This is the thing you go back to no matter, whatever is going wrong, you go back and check this thing. You check your breathing and your body scan and do that first. And most of the time that will solve a whole lot of the things that you see going on that are a problem. And for some reason, the mini version of it just never seemed to get people to do it. And I'm not sure that a longer class will do it, but as I've written this handbook and, things got in more in depth, it's like, oh, I could make it this. And then I'm like, oh no, I've got to put this information. And perhaps when people read why I chose this breathing method, what 24 different things it's doing benefit wise for your health, your social life, your everything, that is there, they may take it a little more seriously. Like, I probably should change. When it gets down to like, how are you breathing and is it creating sleep apnea? And you go, why does my doctor not tell my significant other that maybe they should change their breathing? No, the first thing they go to is, here's your new big CPAP machine, and that'll solve your, oh no, it won't solve your sleep apnea, but it will manage your sleep apnea for you. Well, how about you could do something really super simple and maybe not develop sleep apnea in the first place? But do they go there? And see, now I'm on my soapbox. I feel like I'm kind of lecturing, but it gets me because, I was a health researcher and all of this information is there, but why isn't the medical profession, why aren't they saying, here's some simple things you could do that might prevent you from having to go on that drug or having to have this machine breathe for you at night so you don't die? It's like, why do we do the low tech things first and see how, and then supplement them if we need to with the other stuff? But let's just stop going directly to the most complicated, expensive solution. And I think this is why, as I got into the breathing class, it's like, I think I need to put more of this in there. And this breathing class is not just for people with horses. This is going to be for people no matter what, just in your daily life, So, yeah, again, I tried the Cliff Note version of the breathing and people just kind of blew it off. So,
Well, I think sometimes because they think, oh, everybody talks about breathing, it's like it's the in thing, slow your breathing down, do your meditation, and people think, oh yeah, but I don't have the time to do that. I'm too busy.
yeah,
And I was smiling as you were talking earlier because I was cooking something, and I don't cook that often, so it's a big thing for me. I was cooking something, and I was very much aware that I was in a rush, not a mega rush, but I was wanting to do things. I was thinking about something else. And as I was cooking this, and because I don't cook very often, it was like, this is going to be nice actually. But I was, my mindset and my energy was quite fast. And I thought, I'm not giving the love and attention this cooking deserves. And it was just a little moment like that. And I was aware that my stomach was tense. And I thought, for God's sake, breathe into your tummy. And I just took this big breath and I was smiling, thinking, this deserves my attention because this is going to go into my body and I'm going to eat this. And the energy that I'm expelling doing this needs to be the energy that I want to absorb.
yeah,
And that moment, that it was literally a 30-second conversation in my head, helped me to just slow my breathing down. But I was smiling because we do it all the time. There's lots of things we'll be doing. We won't be breathing properly. We won't be I mean, my breathing is not on your scale, Susie. It's breathing, but it's
Yeah,
you know, it's my own awareness of my breathing.
right.
So I'm gauging my gauge of where I was and where I am now. Um, but it's funny because once you start to see yourself and feel yourself doing things and change it, there's a change in you. There's, even if it's just for a few seconds, there's a slight change.
Yeah,
And that energy that you are working with, when you slow yourself down, when you breathe, when you slow your heart rate down, when you just get into that moment, that energy is flowing through you into whatever you're doing, whether it's cooking, whether it's writing, whether
mhm,
it's speaking. It means that your knowledge, your guidance, your all knowing part of you can flow through and say what it needs to say, do what it needs to do,
yeah.
because you're connecting to that part of you. Um, yeah, so I thought I'd just share that. But somebody did, oh, I think it was Gail. So I've
Gail
just,
had a good
yeah, Gail
question.
asked a question: to what extent does heart energy come into play with breathing when you're with your horses? So I'll let you answer that, Susie.
Okay, so as you all know, the Heart Math Institute, and I wrote about heart math in my book, and they have a lot of different techniques. And what I wanted to do with my breathing technique that I do is to incorporate all those different things into, and you'll see when the book comes out. I write a little bit about, oh, this breathing helps you align with your heart energy and all this kind of stuff. And when I do energies, it's like I'm breathing them through my entire body, meaning my heart, everything else. So I don't have to think intentionally like I'm going to breathe it into my heart. I'm breathing full body. I'm breathing full body. Everything is going everywhere. I don't have to intentionally send it there, because if I have a certain emotion, my heart is the biggest electromagnetic instrument in the body. It's more so than the brain is as far as the amount of electrical activity, and it's magnetic too, that it sends and receives electrical information. Um, if I'm in alignment with my emotion and with my breath, and I'm breathing that emotion through my body, I don't have to worry about my heart because it's going to already be transmitting that information. So you can make it more complicated. That's always where I'm like, well, heart math is great, but they make it, maybe it's not that complicated. If you That's why I designed this breathing method, because it's like it incorporates all these things. You don't have to do other stuff. It takes care of all of that for you. It takes care of whatever energy, and you just have to worry about your own breathing. And the great thing is, you can do it, and it takes you a minute to re-regulate your body back into that space. Once you learn how to do it, I mean, I'll walk people through the exercise, and they can change their breath in a minute and feel completely different and go, okay, so if you can do that anytime you're feeling stressed, you can take 1 minute and reset yourself. And it's just awareness. 1 minute, you're feeling something's starting to go bad. You reset yourself, you're back in, your body's in homeostasis again, and you release the stress. And believe me, that when I was at the summit, I had a full on body scan and breathing running the whole time. And I'm barely regulating the amount of, because there was so much sensory information coming in. I'm having a hard time, even though I'm good at it, I'm like, wow, I'm just barely holding it together on this. And I'm just going to tell you, my thing that I used to do all the time when I got overstimulated was that I would check out, I would dissociate. And it's a beautiful place. I learned to do it really well. And I could feel myself sitting there sometimes, and going, wow, I could just go there. And nobody would know it because I could still talk and everything. I could seem like I was okay, but I wouldn't be present in my body. I wouldn't be fully there. But I could be in my happy place, and my body would still be there, and it would still be talking, and it people would think I was there, but I knew I wasn't. And I'm going, wait, I don't like that old mechanism that I had, that old strategy that I used when I became overwhelmed, because it's not functional to always dissociate when you get overwhelmed. And how many horses do we see do that same thing? They become dissociative because that's their strategy to deal with all the stuff we do. So um, that was just a little side note. Um,
So Gail says, thank you for the great answer to the heart breathing question. You're very welcome, Gail. And it's lovely to have you here again. Your name pops up. It's lovely. I'm just seeing if we've got any more questions.
oh,
But
Catherine
why?
has something. Catherine Garrity.
There we go.
Lately, she's been struggling when
Yep.
Remy is having a.
So do you want to read that out? Because if I keep it in, then it's for the
Cool.
people. Yeah.
So Catherine says, lately I've been struggling when Remy is having a rough, spooky day. I've been taking it as a criticism of not being strong enough to mentally support him. Any thoughts or advice? Last time this happened, I found all the horses on the ranch were spooky too, not just my gelding. So, on these times, it's always hard to go, oh man, I'm not enough. I'm not supporting my horse. But just know there's outside forces. And all we're trying to do when we do these different things with the breathing, I'm modeling for the horse a strategy to use in a spooky situation, in a different situation. So all you have to do, Catherine, is be responsible for yourself. Am I just maintaining? Don't worry about, am I being the role model for him? Don't worry about all that. Don't worry about, am I strong enough? You just go in your space and take care of yourself. And it's like I always say, what's mine is mine, is what's yours is yours. You got this with the horses. Sometimes those things are out of our control, and we can do our best, and they still are out of control. So if you're saying, maybe all the horses there that day were just out of control, we don't know what other factors may be influencing them. And I can just say there was a day a couple days ago where I was like, could feel a level of anxiety all day that I couldn't seem to actually let go of. And I knew it wasn't my anxiety, but it was picking up some kind of global event or something. It may have been that Turkey. I was just thinking it may have been the earthquake in Turkey. And just think about how much energy was released, not only from the earth itself, but through all the suffering of the people that happened to. That's a lot of energy in the field. And what if you're picking that up? I mean, you're going to pick it up at some level. And so just know, well, there's some times when the best laid effort, you can't seem to get it to release, but, and just be gentle on yourself. And I know, Catherine, you've done a lot of work. And so, yeah, don't be hard on yourself for sure. So, and we're all working at this, and I thought I'm so good at this. I can go to that summit and I'm going to be fine. And then like, I'm not so fine.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. You can do something, and even if you think you're doing it identical, there is no way it's always going to be identical, because if there's a slight change in you, a slight change in the horse, it's something different. So even if you think you're doing something identical, the external world of the horse, what's going on, and if there's another horse unsettled somewhere, all the horses tune into that horse. There's lots of things that are out of our control, and that's the thing. It's not for us to control. The only thing we can work with is ourselves.
Right.
And sometimes it's maybe not the right day, not the right time, or it's just not. It doesn't mean, oh my God, what is it? What have I done wrong? Because again, that's like pulling at yourself. It's attacking yourself, attacking your own energy. Just say, okay, today's not the day, or this moment's not the moment. You sometimes get a feel anyway. You go out and you want to do something, and you just get like a feeling that you're going through the motions sometimes, because you can sense something's coming or something's not going to go the way you wanted to go. And then lo and behold, that's what happens. But you've almost predicted what's going to happen. You've already got there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just looking, and Jackie Whitman has a good comment. It's not a question. She's saying, in my humble opinion, folks want it to be fixed and find it challenging to take the time to care for themselves. And I think that's true. You know, I hate to say we as humans are kind of lazy. Like we could just sit there and fix it for me. I mean, I'd love it somebody fixed my life for me, especially my technology. But you know, that's always, there's always going to be those people that go, oh, I want the quick fix, and they're going to find the people that offer the quick fix. And I'm going to say, not that many people come to me, because they're going to have to work hard on themselves, and they're going to have to commit to something that might be uncomfortable sometimes. And there's no, they say, well, how long is this going to take? I don't know. I don't, we can't predict that. All I can tell you is what I've done in my life. And I've done these different things, and they've made a difference for me. And I want to share them, because being a getting back to that, being a highly sensitive person, man, I mean, as a kid, it was tough. And there wasn't anybody to tell you how to deal with all the incoming information and sensory information. And they tell me things like, you're just too sensitive. You just have to let it roll off your back. Well, guess what? It doesn't roll off my back. I need another strategy. You know, and then they go, well, just put up this block and do all this. And like, just don't notice it. And I'm like, okay, you keep your eyes open and don't see. Tell me how that works for you. That's what is equivalent of telling me not to sense something. I'm sorry, it's going to happen. It's on all the time. I've got to have a strategy to how to deal with all that information. And that's that I've done through this breathing method that I use. And I think at the summit work said, well, what do you do? And I think it came across kind of arrogant, because you know, you're in the summit and you're kind of like deer in the headlight thing, like he's asking, oh crud, he's asking me a question, and blah, I'm blank, and you're supposed to come up with the answer in the moment. And I think it came off like, well, I don't do anything anymore. And it's like, no, that's not true. I do the breathing all the time with the body scan, trying to figure out where I'm at and what do I need to do. And it's like a self-regulation thing that's going all the time. And it's like, that's what I do as my strategy, to get through the world as a highly sensitive person. Um, and then notice those times where, yes, I got completely flooded, and take the time to get away from all the sensory input and be in a quiet space and re-regulate your nervous system. And so that, again, I'm a lot of the things that I've developed are coming from the place of a highly sensitive person. But think about it, isn't that the same thing horses are? Highly sensitive. So I'm kind of in that same boat they are, like, this world is a lot for me. How can I deal with it? Okay. And then I'm going to teach the horse the things, strategies that I learned, and see if I can help them navigate this human world a little better. So.
And one of the things that you talked about that was lovely is you started to tell us, you started to talk about doing little with horses, and then you went into the story about Dr. Doolittle, didn't you? And as you were saying that, you could see this, and Dr. Doolittle, the name Doolittle, and but you could see your face as it was flowing through you,
Yeah.
this aha, because he talked to the animals, he listened,
Right.
he felt the animals. And
Yeah.
then I was driving somewhere, was when I think I was going to see some clients, and I passed a road that
Oh, that's right.
I don't pass it every day, but I have passed it before, and I saw the sign Dr. Doolittle Avenue or Dr. Doolittle Road, and so I sent you a
Yeah,
picture because that
I
was
do.
just so funny.
It was funny. And for those that don't know, it's like a lot of times when I'm doing a talk, it's a little bit like I'm connected to that thing I call the internet of intuition. So it's like information is flowing from a higher source, like in, and that's what happened. I'm in the middle of my talk at the summit, and I'm like, there's a download coming in, like don't forget to talk about Dr. Doolittle. I'm like, shut up. I'm in the middle of, can't you see? I'm talking to all these people, like, and so it's like this thing coming in. And then I go, oh, wait, yeah, that's a great one to add to the final few seconds that I have left, which I'm going to get back to. How long did I go? 20 minutes, 19 seconds. And did I put an intention out to talk for 20 minutes? And it was unscripted, and it still managed to say within the 20-minute time thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's like the download was like, and probably I lost those extra 19 seconds going, shut up. I don't know Dr. Doolittle, what does that have to do with what I'm talking about right now? And yeah, if anybody does channeling, it's like kind of interesting to have that connection going all the time and information flowing in from another source, and kind of giving you insights into what's happening in the moment, and whether you listen to them. So I thought the internet of intuition was brilliant at that moment. Like, hey, Susie, don't forget to talk about Dr. Doolittle. Maybe it was Hugh Lofting himself, who was like, yeah. From the other side, he was saying, yeah, talk about why I actually came up with that name for my character in the book that I wrote for kids, Dr. Doolittle. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
that
that
was
was cool.
that was funny. Um, but the reason you want to, so the reason you explain to people and try and get them to understand about the breathing, about quieting themselves down and just getting into that zone, is because that is possible for everybody to connect to that flow. It's there, but we can't hear it if we're busy, if we're doing too much, if we're
Right.
trying to occupy our mind. So it's not about living on a mountain in a hut and not interacting with people. You can do this, but you have to start somewhere. And what Susie's trying to show people, to guide people, is there is a way, and it is not complicated. You can get all the books in the world, you can listen to all the podcasts, to all the audio, but the only way you're going to know and understand this is by practicing it, by doing it, and it doesn't have to be for long. And that is the hardest thing for a human to do, is to sit and do nothing, because we're not used to it.
Yeah.
It's something that is we don't do. We have the TV, we have the internet, which is amazing because we're doing this. So I find this amazing to me. You can see it one way or the other. But you can do that, and your horses or animals are the greatest draw for you to do that. Listening to a horse munch on hay, sitting next to the stall in the evening when it's dark, on just sitting with them, listening to them breathing and relaxing, is such a tranquil place. And even if you just did that, you will get benefits. So it only has to be a tiny thing that you do.
Yeah.
Once you start to do something like that, then you become more aware. But you have to play around with it. It's got to start with you. Nobody can put it into you to do. It's not a chip that you inject into your body and then you do it. You have to do it. Where you start is up to you, but you have to take that first step, because you won't get there unless you do.
Yeah. And I think, just expanding a little on, why don't people want to sit with themselves? Why don't they want to be in quiet? Because for some people, it's incredibly uncomfortable, because all their stuff is coming up, and they've got to look at themselves, and they've got to feel their body talking to them, and it's uncomfortable. And when we think about why do people distract by watching TV, and actually over intellectualizing is another form of distraction. Well, if I just keep I'm busy, I'm searching for the answer. No, you're distracting sometimes by just doing that. That constant search for the answer is a form of distraction. um, so it's complicated when you think about, how do you feel. And it's like, as I was sitting on the couch and feeling depression, it was like, wow, this is really intense. Like, in the quiet of my house without anybody talking to me, this is pretty intense. It would be so much easier to go to Dairy Queen and eat a Dairy Queen something and distract myself, or go binge watch some show, or do something like that, and that would make this feeling not be so intense. And it's like, yeah, we're just so good at those strategies of distraction. And so when or if you are sitting there and it feels uncomfortable, ask yourself, do I want to go be distracted? Is this too much? And maybe sit through that uncomfortableness and just see what happens. And our society has taught us to be disconnected from our body, so it can be very unnerving to feel your body and what your body is saying to you. It can be very odd. And I've seen it in horses that come out of being dissociated, and you can see the uncomfortableness as they are in their body. It's like, wow, this is hard. Um, so I'm going to give them a safe place when they come out of that. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, make sure you're in a safe place, and that maybe there's, a safe person around. They don't have to be doing anything, but just having somebody hold the space is really nice. And a horse is great at holding space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Susan, we've been going for about an hour and a half now. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just going to see if there's more questions quickly. Yeah, Jackie's just said the only way out is through. Trust the process.
Yeah. Sarah said, and we're taught, just take a pill. Isn't that true?
Yes. Yeah.
For heaven's sakes, don't feel something. I would say that everything I do with the horses is because I feel so intensely. And that's a double-edged sword, because then you feel everything, but I would not trade it for anything. I would not get rid of that if they offered me something like $1 million for not feeling. No, I want to feel.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to sort of just share? Is there anything, if you could give, obviously the breathing exercise, so we were having a little bit of a discussion, a little quick chat last night, wasn't we? But something that I was prompted to say to you was, what was you doing when you was 5 years old? And you talked about you went fishing. But it was more to do with about your senses. What was you feeling with that memory? And you talked about the memory of going fishing and what you saw and what you felt and all around you. So it was very much about your awareness of your senses when you was that young.
Yeah. And I think I had the opportunity, unlike some people, to be able to be in environments that were very quiet. I mean, this was when I was fishing. It was at my grandparents' cabin at 10,000 feet. It used to be a Native American campground. It was so magical on this lake, and it was just the most beautiful, serene place. And there were no TV. There was nothing other than family that would come, and visit, and we'd go fishing all day, and I would clean the fish, and I would immerse in the, like, what's inside this fish, and what, the feelings of the cold water. I mean, they didn't have water. You can imagine at 10,000 feet elevation, the water is very cold when it comes up from hundreds of feet down it's like it's freezing. And I would be cleaning the fish, and my hands would be freezing. But I was immersing in all those sensations of the environment and this being, and thanking this being, like, I'm going to eat you, I'm sorry. Back we ate fish then. I don't eat fish anymore very often because I really clean too many. But yeah, it was just so immersive in all the feeling, and I'm so thankful for that experience. And what I just want to suggest to people is, like, when you are doing something, immerse in all the feelings of it. Like, really pay attention to what it is you're doing. What am I experiencing? What are the feelings? What are the thoughts? What's going on? And that's how you start to reconnect to your body. It's like really being present in the activity you're doing and noticing what's going on in your body. So I think that's my thing. You know, there's a thing called um, I forget who wrote the book, and he talked about nature deficit disorder. And I really think that's the crux of all of our problems now, is that we've gotten so far away from being connected to ourselves and to nature and to the whole thing. And we're trying to find, some of us are trying to find our way back. Some of us are trying to find the other way through technology. Um, and clearly, technology hates me because it does something really evil every time I try to do something. Like today, my light went out. So um, it was trying to steal my light.
Yes, but it didn't work, and we're still live, Susie, so that's okay.
Yes, yeah, we managed. Well, that's because Ronnie is running the thing. It's not mine, so she's taking care of that.
So I'm just going to give a little thing that anybody can do. So when you're, oh, sorry, come on, Susie.
No, I just saw Dee Dee came up with Richard Louv was the guy.
Ah, the book. Okay, there
Yeah,
you go. Richard loved Last Child in the Woods.
cool. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dee Dee.
Yeah, you know, if sometimes if you're like a few summers ago, I mean, I do it quite a lot, but and summertime's easy because the sun's shining and you're outside, and you're just daydreaming. Sometimes when you just start to daydream, again, you're quietening yourself down a little bit, but you're focusing on something that it's not heavy focus. So if you watch a butterfly floating past, or you see a bee or an ant crawl across your knee, which that was happening to me, and I was just watching this ant and looking, thinking, wow, that's such a tiny, tiny creature going about its day, doing an amazing thing, and living in a community. And it's a tiny, tiny ant. And you almost let your attention just drift and just seep up what you're seeing and absorbing it. And you can feel your senses a bit more heightened, and you can feel yourself calm down. And to me, that's a sort of meditated state. And again, sometimes that's when information comes through. But it can be, when I say information, it can just be a nice, warm feeling of euphoria. And euphoria doesn't have to be, oh my God, I feel euphoric. It's just this so nice feeling. And it's not all singing and it's not all dancing. And sometimes we think that's what it should look like, but it doesn't. It's how it makes you feel. And if you get into your car and drive home and you have a smile on your face and you've no idea why, it's because you've connected to your source, your energy. And sometimes that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that you've had lots of moments like that, but you probably don't realize it, because as quickly as you drift into that, you drift out of it. If you start to think that was a moment and acknowledge it, what you're doing to your psyche, to your brain, is acknowledging something, recognizing something. So the next time that happens, oh, that feels familiar. That looks familiar. And now I don't know if that's the right exact terminology, because I'm not that way. I'm not Susie. I'm not Dr. Susie. But that's just me explaining. You can have moments, and they are just as special as when you're sat with your horse and your horse comes to you and rests the head on your shoulder and you feel that love. That is connection, and that is a lovely, special moment, and worth the weight in gold.
Yeah. Thank you, Ronnie.
You're welcome. So thank you, everybody. Is there anything else you want to say, Susie? Anything to...
I don't know. I think I said
You said quite a...
I don't know. Like I told Ronnie, I'm going to be on there, blah, 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 blah. You know, I don't know.
So Warren has just said, with curiosity, I explore where in my body I feel those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've almost got to be like a child.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Your inner child, you can be silly, you can be excited, you can be for no reason. Be excited for no reason. Trust me, that lifts you. It's like, I have no idea why I'm excited. I don't know what's around the corner, but I'm excited about it. And that does lift you. And it's like a muscle. Even if you don't feel that way, if you an exercise I did a while ago is I smiled every time I got in my car. Now, I didn't feel like smiling sometimes, but I thought I'm going to do this. So I got in my car and I smiled, and it became a habit because my body knew as soon as you got in the car, smile. And before I knew it, I was smiling all the time. And I thought, I've got the biggest smile on my face. I have no idea why. But it made me feel better. It was a knock-on effect to the rest of my body and my mind. And it's a simple exercise you can do, but it does make a difference. And you smile because you notice you're smiling and you're thinking, I don't know why I'm smiling. And then you get a bigger smile. It's contagious. So play around with your child, your playfulness, your exploring. Play around with your emotions and your feelings, and just see where it takes you. Because you won't know unless you try, and it can take you to some amazing places that aren't always seen. They're just felt.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So Gail's just said, fabulous session, many thanks. I love that you aren't scripted. Well, I tried to script and it doesn't work because you've got to do this, and then I forget where I am because I can't see.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I think for all the work that I do and what I'm trying to convey is that it's about real life. It's about having real conversations. And even this I consider a conversation with everybody here. And you know when somebody scripted their conversation or they got their canned responses, and it doesn't feel genuine. And I always want to just be genuine, even though I may stutter through some things or I'm not as articulate as I could be. I just feel like that's real life. And we're so used to editing everything, everything that's not perfect out of our life. You know, if we're doing some kind of audio thing or something, we're editing out all the parts where we look bad or we don't look the way we think we should. And maybe that's part of my message is that why don't we just stop worrying about getting rid of all the things, all those things we see as imperfections, and just be our real self.
That's a perfect note to end on, Susie. Just be yourself. And as you said earlier in this conversation, it's not just about the horses, because what you teach, and there's a lot of people that are doing lots of good work. It's about connecting, understanding, feeling yourself. Because when you do that, it's not just your relationship with your animals that changes, it's with people. It's how you see things. There can be lots of things going on in the world that maybe a while ago that you saw would overwhelm you and think, oh my God, this is such a world to live in. But when you take the time to just be with yourself, you can see those things, but realize and understand that that's not the whole world. It's just a glimpse that somebody shows us. It doesn't mean to say it's not happening, but there is a whole beautiful world out there if we just take the time. And horses, animals, want us to connect, to be our authentic self and to feel ourselves, because that's who they truly see. They see the real part of you, the scared you, the worried you, the fearful you. So as long as you're honest with yourself and present yourself as you are at that moment in time, your horses and your friends will help you and guide you into what to do next, what to feel next. So thank you so much, Susie. for
Thank you,
tonight.
Amy. Thank
Um,
you, everybody who came and spent a Saturday afternoon or whatever time it is with where you are at. Thank you for your
well,
time.
it's evening here. It's 20:44 here in the UK.
Wow.
Thank you for everybody that's comment. Like I said, Susie can see those, and I couldn't read them all out. We just spent all night just reading the comments out. Susie has given a lots of information, and she has a lots of knowledge that she wants to share. And her online course will be coming up soon, which will be exciting for Susie and for the people that want to join that. And her book is out, so you can read her book. It's also on Audible, so you can listen to it if you haven't heard her book. She's an amazing lady. She has got so much wealth of knowledge under her belt, life experiences. And if you just take a fraction of what she's given today and start doing something for yourself, that's a start. And don't underestimate it. It doesn't have to be huge. It's just a willingness to do something for yourself to change your view and your outcome.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, Susie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate these times.
It's been a real pleasure. So I'm just going to pop you out, and then if you don't mind hanging around, I'll just have a quick chat. So say bye.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Oh, she's an amazing lady. And although technology does hamper sometimes, we've managed to get through today. So this, the conversation was meant to be heard. I hope that you got something from this. Once again, thank you to everybody. And I shall speak to you very soon, and have a lovely weekend. Spend time with your horses, with your friends, but spend time with you, because you are so important. It starts with you. Okay. Take care, and bye for now. Bye.